We have a big schools today that we have more people than we've had until now, right? Let's hope it only grows. We had a different guy last week, but he might still come. I have another person. And let's see how everything is right, amazing, Haskel about this. And the Dvar Malchus, the Dvar Malchus this week speaks about an interesting thing. It speaks about taking out 3 Torah scrolls from the ark, from the Aron. 3 Torahs from the ark. Why? Because there's such. We usually take out on Shabbos 1, right? The past few weeks we took out 2. Okay, because there's 4 weeks before Pesach, for 4 weeks, about not consecutive because there's 1 week of break, but about, or usually it's a break, I think. Anyway, for the past 4 weeks, we the 4 weeks, I don't know, it's not gonna work.
Huh? It's not gonna work.
I don't know. You gotta keep quiet, and you gotta listen. You gotta keep quiet. Okay. So the last few weeks we took out 2 Torahs from the ark. Okay. Now there's special occasions that we actually take out 3 Torahs. Okay. When do we take out 3 Torahs? So there's one special occasion every year that we take out 3 Torahs, and that is on Simchas Torah, the final day of Sukkot. Simchas Torah, we have a big celebration in the show. We celebrate the completion of the reading of the Torah. It's also the end of all the Tishrei, the Rosh Hashanah, and Kippur, Sukkot holidays, end of the major high holiday season. We have a great celebration on Simchas Torah, and then we take out 3 Torahs to read. We read from one Torah the end of the whole Torah, and then we start again. So then we have another Torah to start again, because we don't want to roll up the Torah in front of everyone. So we have to always take out a Torah for the reading, because we don't roll the Torah. We're not ideally supposed to roll the Torah in front of the congregation, because we don't want to waste people's time. We have to have everything set up. So if we need to read something, and then we need to read a different topic, then we take out 2 Torahs. So when on Simchas Torah, we need to read 3 topics. We need to read the end of the Torah. We need to read the beginning of the Torah. We're not going to sit and roll the Torah from the beginning to the end, to the end to the beginning. So we read the end of the Torah from one Torah, the beginning of the Torah from another Torah, and the special holiday reading we read from the 3rd Torah. Okay, that is the 3 Torahs for Simchas Torah. But there is a special time that we could also do 3 during the year. Other 3 opportunities. This other opportunity is this Shabbos. This Shabbos would have been last Shabbos. This year it's not set up like that. But let's say in a certain calendar layout, we would have taken out 3 Torahs last Shabbos. Okay? Or in this, whatever. Then another time is if Hanukkah comes out in a certain way, the calendar layout, that it's Hanukkah and it's the beginning of the month and it's on Shabbos. So when we have to take out a Torah for a Shabbos reading, for the Hanukkah reading, and for the Rosh Chodesh, for the new month readings. Then that doesn't always happen. That's not common that you have all 3 come out at the same time. So then you take 3 Torahs. Then there's another time that I don't remember right now. Anyway, so the idea of taking out 3 Torahs is very special. It's a very special thing. And the Rabbi consists in the talk explains how the reading of the 3 Torahs, the individual reading of each Torah, how it's connected to the content of it, how it's connected to the Torah that they're taking out, and it's It's a very, very amazing talk. Okay, it's now at the end of the talk. In general, the talk is about that we need to have our daily routine being serving us, and then we need to have addition to our daily routine. What do we mean by that? So, for example given in the talk is studying the laws of Pesach and giving people their needs for Pesach. Some people don't have what they need, and giving tzedakah, people should have their needs for Pesach. So these two things, studying the laws of Pesach, because Pesach has a lot of laws. There's a lot of laws about how we do the Seder night. There's laws about the Seder. There's laws about the holiday, what we're permitted to do, what we're not permitted to do. And there's a lot of laws about what we're allowed to eat and what we're not allowed to eat. Right? So Passover has a lot of laws. Sukkot is not so complicated. It's not as complicated as Pesach. Because Sukkot, you can eat whatever you want, you just got to eat it in a sukkah. Not so complicated. And then there's no Seder on Sukkot. We don't have a Seder. Pesach. Right? Pesach can't have no bread. So that gets very complicated because you can't have bread, you can only eat matzah, and then it's not only bread that you can't eat. You can't eat pasta, you can't eat a lot of beans. Yeah, we don't eat beans either. Pasta, we don't eat beans either. What is that? What do we eat? That's a good question. So they say, anyway, what do we eat? So we eat the basic foods, like the bread is matzah. You can't have bread, so you got matzah. And when it comes to carbohydrates, it's potatoes. A lot of potatoes.
Like peppers?
What? You can have potatoes, yeah. Because all the other carbohydrates are not allowed.
Like sweet potato.
Sweet potato, there are those that eat sweet potatoes. Our custom is not. But you could eat sweet potatoes. Yeah, I don't know. They don't serve it in yeshiva. I don't know. I'm not sure why. There's such a custom only to eat what they serve in yeshiva. Yeah. So we're in our family. My wife says it's good because this way, when you have too many options, you have a hard time making a good choice. So when you have less options, it makes it easier. That's what my wife says. But it's a custom. There's a lot of customs on Pesach. But what is certain that we can eat is potatoes. A lot of things have potatoes, potato starch. There's a lot of things that's cookies made out of potato starch. And you'll see Passover cookies. They're usually made out of potato starch. Yeah, this is a relatively new invention that they have succeeded in making pastries. And there's a lot of things that they succeeded in making out of potato starch. Yeah, so potato starch is one of the. We don't eat potato starch in our family. We eat a lot of potatoes, obviously, and besides that, but we don't eat beans, so there's a lot of chicken, meat. Eat a lot of chicken and fish. Yes, eat fish. Milk products is also technically could eat. We don't eat it, but there's a lot of milk products. Obviously, not the pizza. I don't think in America, in Eretz Yisrael, in the Holy Land, they have pizza that they make a crust out of potato starch. There's a lot of that in the Holy Land, but in America, I don't think it's so easily to be found. So there's no kosher based on pizza, not to my knowledge, not in America. But cheese and milk, that's technically there's no, as long as it's kosher Passover. In other words, also if something was cooked in a non-kosher Passover, you have a separate set of dishes for Passover because you can't use even just to use the pot that you cooked your pasta in, you can't cook with that on Pesach. You can't cook with that same pot on Passover your potatoes. Okay, you have to have a separate pot. You have a new pot. and your dishes, you can't eat from the same dishes. So you gotta have a different set of dishes for Pesach. And you could we use disposable anyway, but you could just use disposable, obviously. It's brand new. So there's a lot of laws. Pesach is a lot of laws. Okay, so getting back to what we were saying, so there's a lot learning and studying the laws, and there is the addition. And that is if you study the laws, then you study it even better, even deeper. Okay? Like person, the education that I got, and a lot of people that they went in the yeshiva education. So the laws, most of the laws they know, but it doesn't mean you should take it for granted that you know. You got to review it, and even when you review it, there's also more depth and more knowledge to always come to. Okay, so that's the idea of doing an addition, to what is usual. Okay. And then it's tzedakah also, the Rebbe often says about tzedakah, about charity, and helping people with the needs of Passover, a Pesach that they gave an amount, and then they saw, it says, when you give tzedakah, Hashem gives you more money. So when you see you got more money, then you give again, you give addition. Now, the end of the talk is very special. At the end of the talk, the Rebbe says that goes back to the idea of the 3 Torah scrolls, and mentions a very interesting idea. And says that when you have 3 Torah scrolls, it's like 3 rabbis. We just had this in Rambam recently about 3 rabbis. In general, a Jewish court is made up of 3 rabbis, 3 authority rabbis. Okay, that makes up a Jewish court. So the Rebbe says something interesting, and says that the Jewish court of 3 rabbis, we see this in the 3 Torah scrolls. The 3 Torah scrolls that we take out, that's like having 3 rabbis. And what are they ruling? What are the Torah scrolls giving us a ruling? The 3, it's like a basin, so to say. It's like a court. What is the ruling? It's the ruling that the redemption has to come immediately. It's very interesting that the Rebbe says that, now it is kind of, when do we take out 3 Torah scrolls, so to say, like a court? We do that in Yom Kippur. Right? I think so. Yeah, anytime we take out 3 Torahs on Yom Kippur, on Kol Nidre?
Not sure. I think so, yeah.
I think we take out 3 Torahs, and it's the idea of like having a court, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, the Rebbe says it doesn't mention Yom Kippur in the Sikha, but the Rebbe says it does say that when we took out the 3 Torah scrolls that Shabbos, it was like the ruling of a court. You make a Hadam. Say Baruch Atah Adonai. Priya Adam. Amen. There you go. Okay, so now, so I saw something very interesting this week about the ruling. He has to watch. He has to make the watch. I guess. I don't know. I don't know. You really would, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, the ruling of rabbis that the Gula has to come. Okay, again. So the 3 Torah scrolls, the Rebbe that talks about that these 3 Torah scrolls is the weekly parsha Vayikra. Okay, and the other Torah scroll was the Parshas HaChodesh. The special parsha we read because of the Korban Pesach that we hope we're going to bring. So we read about the offering of the Korban Pesach and the holiday of Matzos, and we do that. It's called Parshas HaChodesh. That's another Torah. And then there's a Torah about the Rosh Chodesh, the new month. And the Rebbe explains how all these 3 Torah readings are connected to the coming Messiah. And the Rebbe says that through the 3 Torah scrolls that we took out, this is a ruling of a Beis Din that Mashiach and the Gula have to come. I don't know the exact terminology in the Sikha, but interestingly, by no chance, I came across something quite amazing this week. A Jewish court. Okay, so now in Crown Heights, there's a Jewish court.
Well, what happened?
What happened?
It's all land.
Maybe just move this stuff away.
Well, we need like this one.
Okay. Maybe just move the food away. It doesn't get something spilled.
Oh, there.
Okay. Anyway, getting back to us. Okay, so there's a Jewish court in Crown Heights. The Jewish court in Crown Heights is the Beis in Tzedek of Crown Heights.
Maybe there's a cup to wash in there.
The Beis in Tzedek in Crown Heights is, at that time, this is something I saw this week. I saw a whole,
Cup to wash over there.
I saw a whole magazine that came out then, a Chabad magazine that came out right after the passing of Rebbetzin, the Rebbetzin. I saw this on Sunday, which was right after the Rebbetzin birthday. And this magazine that came out right after the Rebbetzin passing, so it's speaking about her, and there's all these different, I think he's stuck. It's speaking about her, and there's a lot of dedications. The magazine is full of dedications, wishing the Rebbe Malchus not to know of any more sorrow, and also in memory of the Rebbetzin. Now I was looking through. It's practically all dedications. Practically the whole magazine is all dedications. It's like maybe 3 articles in there, and in the beginning there's 2 sichos, or 3 sichos that the Rebbe Malchus that had said upon the passing of the Rebbetzin. And then there's maybe 2 or 3 articles, like 2 women that knew the Rebbetzin. Rabbi Volkman wrote a very interesting article, which we might mention some of the things he wrote there. But the majority of the magazine is dedications, okay, like full-page dedications to the comforting the Rebbe Malchus for the passing of his wife, and wishing him to not know of any more sorrow, and hoping that wishing the Gula should be already. Now, interestingly enough, the only dedication, this again was in 1988, the only dedication that had an extremely clear indication that the Rebbe Malchus says there's Mashiach. There was one dedication that made it very clear indication that the Rebbe Malchus says there's Mashiach. Whose dedication was that one? The Beis in Tzedek of Crown Heights. They're the ones that had a very clear indication. How did they do it? They wrote, I don't remember the exact wording, but what they wrote was that Mashiach, whose name is Menachem, should redeem us. I don't remember. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was quite clear that they were writing that the Rebbe said it's an Malchus Mashiach. And it was interesting, like they were technically the only one that was close. There was another one, maybe a little bit close to the Neshei Chabad of Crown Heights. They also had something quite close, but not as strong as the Beis Din. The Beis Din's dedication was the strongest in making it clear that the Rebbe is Mashiach. Which is very interesting because we just mentioned about the ruling of the three Torahs, that's like a based in ruling that Mashiach is needs to come, is imminent, or Mashiach is coming, is ready. I don't remember the exact wording in the Sikha. So, what's the significance of the Beis Din, of the Jewish court? And why the Rabbi Malchus says that makes a note of this at the end of the Sikha Vayikra. And Vayikra is the first. It's a custom that when we teach children Torah, we begin with the parsha of this week. We begin with Vayikra, and it's became accepted custom to study the talks of the Rebbe. Malcolm says at the beginning with the parsha of Vayikra. Even though the booklets, the Dvar Malchus booklets that came out, they came out a few weeks before, because I have the I have the booklet of Vayikra, and it says in it number 7. So it had to be a few weeks before that it started, that it had the title of Dvar Malchus on them. And then the Sikh of Chafes Nisan, which was the turning point in the talks of that, clearly speaking about Mashiach coming, was a little bit after. So, but the custom is to begin with Vayikra, and it's interesting, this idea of the court. So, Jewish court. What is a Jewish court's ruling? What's the significance of a Jewish court's ruling? So, the Rabbi says that speaks about it at a different occasion, that a Jewish court's ruling influences the world. It makes a change in the world. When a Jewish court gives a ruling, it makes a change in the world. And interestingly, we're having this Friday, Thursday night, is going to be the 35th anniversary of the talk the Rabbi Malchus gave about announcing "Long live the King," Yechia Melech, "Long live the King" to the Rabbi Malchus, explaining that we reached the time in history that we've been waiting for, to be able to announce "Long live the King" to the Rabbi Malchus, because we're at a time of Mashiach being a reality, the leader of our generation. And that talk was Beis Nisan Tashim Em Ches. That was about a month after what is the Beis Din gave their dedication. The Beis Din gave this dedication about a month before that. It's very interesting. So the Rabbi Moshe is likely, corresponding to that. That the Beis Din, obviously, if they wrote that in their dedication, I had the schus, one of the rabbis, the rabbis that gave that dedication was Rabbi Marlow, Rabbi Ozdaba, and Rabbi Heller. Rabbi Heller, he wrote a sefer about Mashiach. It's called Hilchos Mashiach. And I also, when I was in yeshiva, I saw a Kovetz Aris that Rabbi Heller wrote, a whole thing about the importance of publicizing the identity of Mashiach. And it seemed like this was something he was really into, because he also put it into his book. So he had written a whole, and I think that's what he wrote. I think it was a speech he gave. So obviously he was into this topic about the importance of publicizing the identity of Mashiach, and what he explains about his idea of the importance of publicizing the identity of Mashiach was that the Rambam writes that there was a man named Bar Kochba. He was a warrior. He was like a general, army general. And he was right after the destruction of the second holy temple, the second Beis Hamikdash. And he was revolting against the Romans, correct?
So, yeah.
I think, right? So they were the ones that destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, but he gathered a big army and was revolting against them, and he was succeeding to some degree, and they were hoping that the Beis Hamikdash, this is like 2 years after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, they were hoping that they could regain the power and rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. And they were hoping that this man, Bar Kokhba, would be Mashiach. He was this mighty warrior, had a big army. What ended up happening was that it was he made a mistake, this Bar Kokhba person, and he ended up not coming through, and it actually brought many casualties, that whole revolt. Because in general, now that we have more experience in we have more experience with all this, we see that the idea of a revolt is not the best, and certainly he was not going in the right direction. Anyway, getting back to what the Rambam is talking about. So the Rambam says, the Rambam is trying to tell us, the Rambam is giving us the identity. How are we going to know how to identify Mashiach? How are we going to know how to identify Mashiach? So first, the Rambam writes that you shouldn't think Mashiach is a miracle worker. That's how you can identify him, from the fact that he will make miracles. Don't think that that's the identity of Mashiach, which is, to our dismay, a non-Jewish concept by today. We realize that that's certainly not the right perspective. The Rambam says, don't think this. How do we know? Because this man, Bar Kokhba, he wasn't a miracle worker. He was a warrior. He was an army general. And Rabbi Akiva, this is what the Rambam writes, Rabbi Akiva didn't ask from him to make any miracles. And Rabbi Akiva would say about him that he's Mashiach, and Rabbi Akiva would carry his, weapons, right? That's the sex symbol, right? Anyway, the idea is, the Rambam writes specifically that Rabbi Akiva would tell everyone that he's Mashiach. He would say, Haya Omer Allah, and as the Rabbi Volpa writes, Haya Omer, when it says Haya Omer, means he would constantly say it. He would constantly tell people that Bar Kokhba is Mashiach. And Rabbi Heller explains that this, we know every detail the Rambam writes is not just telling us a story. He's telling us this, and he gives two details that he would say about him that he's Mashiach and carry his weapons. Then we know there's a ruling from it. It's not just a story that the Rambam is telling us. So Rabbi Heller explains, with this we understand what the Rambam writes in the beginning of the chapter. The Rambam writes, whoever doesn't believe in him in the coming, and whoever doesn't await his coming, he denies the Torah. Okay, in other words, we have to believe in the coming of Mashiach and await his coming. Okay. Now the way Rabbi Heller, because it's technically superfluous, it's technically double. Why does the Rambam say whoever doesn't believe in him, whoever doesn't await his coming? It's technically the same thing. So Rabbi Heller explains, what does that mean? It means that when a person has the status of being Mashiach, you have to believe that he will be the one to redeem us. So believing in him doesn't mean just believing in general that Mashiach will come. It means that once a person gains the status of Mashiach, you have an obligation to believe that he will be the one to redeem us. Okay, that's why the Rambam writes, Rabbi Akiva would tell everyone that he's Mashiach, is in order that they too will also fulfill this and believe that this person will redeem us. In that time, it was before we had all the knowledge and experience of a mistake. So we misunderstood as to really what Mashiach is all about. Mashiach is not a warrior. Mashiach is more a great leader who is going to fight spiritual wars rather than physical wars. More gaining the strength of spiritual strength rather than physical strength. And that's really what Mashiach is all about, getting the Jewish people to do Torah mitzvahs. We didn't understand that. So that was a mistake. But we do still comprehend from the case of Rabbi Akiva to understand what it means when a person has the status of Mashiach. So Rabbi Heller, obviously, he was one of the people that put this dedication. There was the three rabbis then. It was Rabbi Marlow, Rabbi Azzo, and Rabbi Heller. Now, obviously, Rabbi Heller was very into that. I wonder who's the one that wrote the nusach of this Hagdasha, but certainly they joined all together in it. And that's the quality of a Beis Din, that it's a strength of a firm strength. So that is something unique. The Rebbe Malchus says that in this talk is talking about also the idea of eternity. That salt is the idea of eternity. We have to put, it says, on every carbon we got to put salt. And the salt is the idea of eternity. Because when you salt something, it could last a long time, preserves. And that idea of eternity is interesting. What Rabbi Volpa wrote in this magazine. He wrote a very interesting thing. He said that the passing of the Rebbetzin is a preparation for the coming of Mashiach, because it's like a descent for the descent afterwards. And he wrote something very interesting about something that was taking place at that time. That then it's not specifically related to the Rebbetzin passing away, and that was that at that time the Rebbe Malchus stopped answering questions, and that took place actually a few months before the Rebbetzin passed away. And the Rebbe Malchus explained that the reason he's not answering questions anymore is because we should already be mature enough to know most answers. We could ask people, and we should in general be more knowledgeable, that we reach the point that we don't need to ask questions anymore. Now, Rabbi Volba has a very interesting explanation of this, and in connection with this, that we're approaching the building of the Beis Hamikdash. So he says like this. He says, before the Mishkan was erected, which is in Parshas Truma, was beginning the discussion. You got to break over a piece. It discusses the erection of the Mishkan, and prior to that, you have in Yisrael, right? Yisrael, Mishpatim, right? So Yisrael is the week that the Jewish people got the Torah, and in that parsha begins that Hashem told Moshe to listen to his father-in-law, who was telling him that he shouldn't be the one answering everyone's questions. He is going to be the one speaking directly to Hashem. But all the questions should go to the other people, the other rabbis, whatever we call them at that time, the elders. And the only major questions will go to Moshe Rabbeinu. But the questions will go to the leaders, the other leading rabbis, whatever they are. And he explains, or Rav explains, that this is a preparation for the building of the Mishkan. Why is this a preparation for the building of the Mishkan? I don't remember exactly, but the idea, I guess, was that being that Moshe Rabbeinu's job is to be Mul HaElikim, that's the wording of the pasuk. He's supposed to be opposite Hashem. In other words, he's supposed to be the direct connection to Hashem, and we are supposed to, in other words, he is, so to say, I guess, this is how he's explaining it. Moshe Rabbeinu is more involved in higher things now than in answering our questions. He's more involved in having a direct connection with Hashem and getting directives from Hashem and information and studying with Hashem. And we have to use the time by asking other people and giving the Moshe Rabbeinu giving Moshe his time to be with Hashem. That's how he understands it. And that's especially when the Mishkan will be erected, because when the Mishkan will be erected, then that's a place that Hashem speaks to Moshe. So this idea of stopping to answer Jewish people's questions was a stage towards having the Mishkan built, which then Moshe will be involved in talking directly to Hashem, and there won't just be that time to answer people's questions. So he says, Rabbi says the similar is with the Rabbi Malchus says that we're coming close to the building of the third Beis Hamikdash, and then the building of the third Beis Hamikdash will be once again in a much greater way. There is a sicha that mentions something like this, and Nevuah comes through the Beis Hamikdash, so it'll be much greater. Mashiach will be, the Rabbi Malchus says that will be involved in speaking to Hashem, so there won't be time to answer our questions. So he says this is a preparation for the third Beis Hamikdash, just like as a preparation for the building of the Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu stopped asking questions. So too, in our times, as a preparation for the building of the third Beis Hamikdash, the Rebbe Malchus says this stops answering questions. This is how he explains it, and it's a time that Hashem should give us, that we should already have the building of the third Beis Hamikdash, and we should, in these parshas, this is the parsha that actually they already had the karbones, at least they're talking about the karbones, the sacrifices, which are only in the Beis Hamikdash. We don't do that without a Beis Hamikdash. That's unique to the Beis Hamikdash. The Holy Temple is the offering of animals to Hashem, offering sacrifices to Hashem. And we have the big one that we're probably going to do this year, the offering of the Pesach, the lamb for Pesach. That's a unique sacrifice. A lot of sacrifices, we burn the whole thing on the altar, or the majority is eaten by the Kohen. But the Pesach sacrifice, the majority is eaten by the owner, the family. Every family, every group, specifically family, every group brings a lamb on Pesach, and they roast the lamb, and then they eat the lamb on the Seder night. It's together with the Seders, they eat the lamb. We hope this year we should have that merit. We can't do that now, because it has to be done in the Beis Hamikdash. It has to be done in the holy temple, in the holy sanctuary. And we hope this year we're going to actually have that. What's certain is that this time is the time that we're dedicating a lot. We say a whole thing. We hope this year we won't have to say it. We'll actually do it. We say on Erev Pesach, before Pesach begins, we say a whole paragraph about what was the order, how they made the karban, how they made the sacrifice of the sheep, and we shouldn't have to read it. We should actually do it this year. Let's hope. There's an emphasis in our customs and our practices on the service in the Holy Temple, in the Holy Beis Hamikdash. We hope that this year we should actually have it. So that's the great things that we're looking forward to and that we see, and very soon will be the completion of the 120th year of the Rebbe in this physical world. It's going to be the birthday of the Rebbe in a little bit, like in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, and it's an opportunity to strengthen ourselves. To here it says, on the birthday of a great person, the leader of the Jewish people, his birthday, it strengthens the mazel, it strengthens the whole power of the Jewish people. And the Rebbe often says about Moshe Rabbeinu v'gavar Yisrael. It says when Moshe lifted his hands, the Jewish people they overcame their enemies of Amalek. They cover Yisrael. And the Rebbe says that that's like on the birthday of a leader of the Jewish people, it's Mazali Goiver, it makes the whole Jewish people strong. And that's going to be a very big day, so we prepare and we want to, it's a custom to give a present to the Rebbe. Malchus says, what present do we give? We give a notification about good deeds we did, mitzvahs we added in honor of the birthday of the Rebbe. Says and there's a lot that we could add, certainly, in doing more and more. And we hope that our resolutions and our doing a lot should bring ready the complete revelation of Mashiach for the building of Beis Hamikdash and the gathering of all the Jewish people and bring the whole entire world to serve Hashem as one. And
Right now.
anyone have any questions? Any questions? No questions? So we immediately. Have a Zoom, right?
Huh?
Zoom.
Yeah.